Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Toti with yet another Commander Deck Tech. This time, this lovely guy over here, Skullbriar, the Walking Grave. Before I get started with the Commander, I just want to speak about two things really quickly. The first one is that you'll probably see in the games that sometimes my deck doesn't match 100% with the deck that you'll see right now. And that is because there are some difference in cards, and that is because as I play the games, I do test the deck before I start recording, but even after I'm recording and playing the games, because you never get to see the 100 cards, it's really difficult to test all the cards. So basically, when I'm playing some of the games, I find that some cards are not as good, or I find cards that are better, so there is some replacement of cards that is going on between the games that I'm recording. So just to let you know, in case you see some cards that aren't in the deck list here. The other thing I want to talk about is that, as you've seen, I've uploaded a couple of new Commander deck techs recently. I wanted to upload this one real quick as well, because I'm going to be away actually for 2 weeks, so there will not be any Commander action for at least 2 weeks. So at least you guys get to enjoy this. However, it's going to be worth the wait, because I know what my next Commander is going to be. I've been building and playing 1 or 2 games with the deck already, and I can tell you, I think so far it's my favorite Commander that I've done. I was kind of reluctant at first, but I think it's one of the most powerful and fun decks that I've built for this series. So yeah. So quickly about the Commander. As you can see here in the big fat text box, what you can see Skullbriar does is he's a 1/1 with haste, and he has a Slith ability. So whenever he deals damage to a player, you can put a +1/+1 counter on him. But what's really cool about him is that those hard-earned counters that you get on him throughout the turns remain on him on other zones. So like, if he dies and is exiled to your commander zone, he keeps the counters there. If he goes to your graveyard, he keeps the counters. Obviously, it doesn't work if he is bounced, as it says here, or if he is shuffled into your library. So those are things we're going to try to avoid. What I really like about this guy is that up here, he costs 2 mana. So already on turn 2, or maybe even turn 1 if you're lucky, you get to play the commander and start beating down. Normally, commander decks are kind of slow. The first couple of turns nothing is happening, it's just about ramping and getting to your really fat spells really early. But this guy can really kill at least one person off before they even get started, so this is what the deck is trying to do, and after that hopefully Skullbriar will be big enough to deal with the rest. So, moving into the card choices then. In this column we have cards that are specifically meant to be synergistic with Skullbriar. So all the counters we put on him remain, so we're going to take advantage of that. We're going to put a bunch of counters on the guy so we can kill people off really quickly. For example, Shape of the Witigo. It costs 6 mana, it's expensive, but when it enters the battlefield you put 6 counters on the guy. And then you either put another one on each turn, you put another one if the guy attacked, or if he blocked, but normally attack. Skullbriar only attacks. Or you remove it if he didn't. But what's cool about this is it's an aura, but it doesn't really do anything. I mean, if it's disenchanted or anything, the counters stay in there. So it's pretty cool in Skullbriar. Then Strengths of the Taijuru, basically like a +1/+1 counter fireball with multi-kicker. Decree of Savagery. The idea here is to cycle it mostly. You're going to put 4 +1/+1 counters on your Skullbriar at instant speed, draw a card, or you can actually cast it and put it on every creature, but that rarely happens. Then this brand new one from Dark Ascension, Increasing Savagery, puts 5 +1/+1 counters for 4. This one is a really aggressive one, and then you can flashback it for 7 and put 10. So this card is pretty ridiculous, a really nice addition from Dark Ascension. Fungal Behemoth, you can, if I get the guy, Fungal Behemoth, you can suspend this guy for X, and during each turn you, during each turn you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control when you remove a suspend counter, and then he comes with power and toughness equals to the +1/+1 counters that are in the game, basically, that you control. So he pumps up your general, and he is normally pretty fat when he comes into play, so that's cool. Then we have Yugan, the Rising Star. Just a fat dragon that puts a lot of counters when he dies. We have some sacrifice outlets, so we can make that happen, hopefully, when we want. Vigor, we spoke about this guy many times before. He is amazing. People can't really attack into or block creatures with this, because they just get bigger, and it's especially nasty with Skullbriar. This guy is just insane. And Spike Feeder and Spike Weaver. You can move counters from them onto Skullbriar, or you can use them as you normally would to prevent all damage and gain some life. Cytoplast Rootkin, another guy with Graft. So basically he pumps up your Skullbriar when he comes into play, or after if he's already in play because he has Graft. Sporeback Troll, another Graft guy, so good if you play your commander after him, and also he regenerates your commander. Or one of these guys, but yeah, your commander. Then this guy, he is pretty much the lord of +1/+1 counters, so every time someone plays a spell, well, you can put a +1/+1 counter on him, and then during your upkeep you can redistribute them around. So he's pretty sick. Then classic but still decent, Golgari Guildmage, kind of expensive, but he puts +1/+1 counters on creatures, or you can use it to raise dead a creature if you sacrifice another one. And that's actually not irrelevant either, let's say, because as we said, Skullbriar doesn't really like to be bounced or put into your library, because then he loses all his counters. So we have some sacrifice effects in the deck to avoid that from happening, from people bouncing it, shuffling into your library, or even stealing it, because that could be potentially even worse. So we do have a couple of sacrifice outlets. Then Dragon Blood, just another classic one, just kind of expensive too, but puts +1/+1 counters on Skullbriar. Firlid, he's not amazing, but he searches lands and allows you to ramp, and with some cards like, I don't know, Dragon Blood or this guy, you can keep putting counters on him and keep thinning your decks from land, so he's good. And last but definitely not least, we have Doubling Season. This is insane in any sort of token and or +1/+1 counter deck. I mean, doubles the amount of +1/+1 counters that are put on stuff you control, and doubles the amount of tokens that come into play. So yeah, pretty sick. Moving on then to this side, we have few equipments that are meant to make our Skullbriar better. For example, Whisper Silk Cloak gives him Shroud and Unblockable. So Unblockable is pretty cool because he will always get in there and get extra counters, and Shroud just protects him. Then the three best swords, in my opinion at least, Light and Shadow, Fire and Ice, and Feast and Famine. This gives our general protection from the most relevant colors, I would say, and they have the best abilities probably. So they are pretty much a no-brainer, I would say, for any sort of killing you with a general kind of deck like this. Umezawa's Jite, also pretty good with our commander. He can kill people pretty fast, or he has removal or gain life. Another really good equipment. Champion's Helm, another standard from the commander decks that came out. Just gives +2/+2 and hexproof to our guy, so pretty decent. Loxodon and Warhammer gives our guy lifelink +3/+0 and trample, which is quite important because that means they can't chump block Skullbriar and prevent him from getting his counters on. And Rancor as well, that is kind of the same thing as the Warhammer, but a bit worse obviously, but much cheaper. Over here we have just a couple of ramp spells. Mox Diamond, this card is especially good in our deck because it allows us to play Skullbriar turn 1. That is the main reason why this card is here. Normally I don't like these kind of artifact ramps, except the really good ones like this one and Soul Ring. I don't really like artifact ramps like the Signets, for example, because people play a lot of artifact removal, even mass artifact removal, because there are really broken artifacts around here. So they tend to get blown away, and that's not really good for you. And then Soul Ring, because it's Soul Ring, Solemn Simulacrum, and Primeval Titan. I can't really say much about these cards. It hasn't been said yet. Then a couple of just good card advantage cards. Mind's Eye is one of my favorite. Each time a player draws a card, you can pay 1 and draw one yourself. So that's pretty sweet. If you have 3 mana open at the end of your turn, you basically draw 3 extra cards per turn if no one destroys it. Harmonize, 4 mana, draw 3, standard, greater good. This is really insane actually here, because our commander tends to get pretty fat pretty fast. So we draw a bunch of cards and discard 3 with this, or, well, not or, and also sacrifice a creature. It's one of our sacrifice outlets, so that's pretty good. Soul's Majesty, this one is kind of risky, but it's so good. It's like a one-time greater good. Just straight out draws us cards equal to the power of a creature, so this one normally gets us like 6 cards or something like that. Phyrexian Arena, classic, and then a couple of tutors, Imperial Seal, Demonic Tutor, and Green Sun Zenith. That gets us almost all of our guys. Moving on, we have our removal. Damnation and Decree of Pain are just 2 classics of black decks. Damnation, maybe not so much, but most black decks play it. And this one, decks that are black and aren't playing this card should. It's as easy as that. This card is ridiculous. 8 mana is not really a problem in EDH, you normally get there. And this thing is absolutely ridiculous. Wrath God, and you draw 1 card per each creature destroyed. This is absolutely sick. I very hardly lose a game when I've cast this card. Siphon Flesh, another of new cards from the commander sets. It's basically whatchamacallit, a Fleshback Marauder, but you put a 2/2 for each creature sacrificed this way by players. Then Oblivion Stone, just some mass removal. Pernicious Deed, kind of the same thing. Putrefied and Maelstrom Pulse are targeted removal, but they are really flexible, that's why they're here. Beast Within is the same thing, just instant Vindicate. The 3/3 is absolutely relevant. Fleshback Marauder, we just spoke about. Butcher of Malachor, with all our sacrifice outlets, the Butcher of Malachor is pretty decent, so that's why he's here. And then Massacre Worm, he can really keep some decks like what's the name of this one? The mono white King of Keldor things. The one that makes that 1/1 token each time reload damage. Anyway, there are a bunch of token generation, or Risk the Redeem, that one as well. It just owns token generation strategies and makes people think twice about playing cards like Avengers and Vicar. Then over here we have some Graveyard Hate. So Neil Spellbomb, it's Graveyard Hate plus a cycle. Nezubi Grave Robber removes card from the graveyard and can then reanimate stuff. Necrogenesis, same thing, removes creatures from graveyards. A bit of enchantment and artifact removal in Tribute to the Wild. Acidic Slime and Indrik Stomp Howler. These 2 are pretty much the same thing, they are classics. And then Tribute to the Wild is a new card from Commander that I'm trying out. It's kind of a Fleshback Marauder for artifacts and enchantments. So yeah, I want to check it out. Well, not exactly, it's only opponents, not for you, so pretty cool. Then some other random good stuff. Regrowth and Eternal Witness lets us recur our good cards. Yevmaya Elder pretty much has to be played in every green deck because he is amazing. And Glissa the Traitor, basically there because she's a good card. First strike and death touch makes it so she's really difficult to get past, and then she can recur stuff like the Neil Spell Bomb, or even get back like your Soul Ring or Mox Diamond, but mostly recurring the Spell Bomb here. Then over here we have actually a couple of fatties. Let me move this over. Just some fatties. Lord of Extinction. He's there because he's humongous and he's pretty good with greater good. Vulture Zombie gets as well pretty big, pretty fast. Sheoldred is just amazing. She makes everyone sacrifice a creature each turn and reanimates a creature each turn, so very good. Runescar Demon, walking demonic tutor, so he's cool. And then my friend Mikaeus the Unhallowed. I think from now on I'm gonna play this guy in every black deck I make. He's amazing. He just has so many good abilities. Intimidate, that's probably the worst ability. Because the other ones are just so amazing. It's whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. So, well, as you can see here, there are a lot of human commanders like Crash and some of the human wizard guys. So that's actually not an irrelevant ability. Then he is pretty much a crusade effect for all of your non-human creatures, so most of our creatures. And then the most important one is all of our guys have Undying. So he is kind of insurance from a Wrath of God. He is just amazing. Then we move over to the lands. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly because it's kind of the same thing for all decks. A bunch of basics. This is 2 colors, so we will have a lot of basics. Then just the classic Urborg and all the searchers you can get, and a couple of duels and the classics like Command Tower, Reflecting Pool, Temple of the False God, Tainted Wood in this case because I have a lot of swamps and Urborg. So just a bunch of mana fixing cards. And on this other side here we have the lands with abilities. So starting from the bottom, Bojuka Bog, Graveyard Hate, Maze of Ith, not really a land, but it can be searched up with Primeval Titan. Shizo gives our guy Fear, so it makes it kind of unblockable if they don't control a black creature, which is pretty cool. Okina, Temple to the Grandfathers, pumps our guy. This very rarely has any importance, but you know, it's kind of free. Llanowar Reborn, this is pretty good. If you play this turn 1 and then turn to a swamp, you actually start with a 2/2 Skullbriar instead of a 1/1, so that's pretty cool. Oran Reef as well, it helps us pump our Skullbriar when we play it. Mossword Bridge, as I said, it's pretty easy to get pretty fat creatures pretty fast. So this gets us like free cards. Dust Bowl to deal with annoying lands like Cabal Coffers and Gaia's Cradles and those kind of things. Or some of the ones we have over here. But yeah, new addition from Mercadian Masks, pretty cool. Homeward Path, as we were saying, we don't want people to steal our general or bribery us or anything like that. So this one is a pretty cool one. Also new from Commander. High Market, Mirror in the Moaning Well, and Phyrexian Tower are all sacrifice outlets. That allows us to sacrifice our Skullbriar if it's being stolen or bounced or put somewhere. Then Volrath Stronghold lets us just recur our guys from the graveyard, and the Avimea Hollow just generates Gaia. This one is also a classic in any sort of green deck. So, there you have it. That is the deck. So now let's just see how this guy performs in actual matches.